Sweet. Okay. Hello, everyone. We're going to give it a few more seconds just to let people kind of trickle in, and then we'll be good to start.
I feel like we need like elevator music.
Or like when you're at the dentist in the waiting room and there's just music playing, you're like, ah.
Yeah, someone's going to be in my mouth in 2 minutes.
Okay, sweet. You know what? Let's get started because I want to make sure we have enough time for all the Q&A at the end. Cool. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. My name is Kata. I am the head of People and Culture for Credit Sesame Canada. We're here today with Agata, who's going to be talking about communicating to engage employees and maximize results. Before we jump into the introductions, though, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So during this time, you can obviously see the conversation tab on the side. In here, you can use it to chat in. If anything really sticks out and you want to comment on it, if you have any burning questions that you want to get off, just type them in. There is a Q&A section also beside it, as well as polls. There's an option to be invited onto stage. So as you see the two of us right now, our faces, you can hear us talk. If you have a burning question and you're like, I want some FaceTime, I want to get up on stage, there's an option to raise your hand. So when you do that, I'll be able to click it and send you up to stage. At the end of the presentation, we are doing a 10-minute moderated Q&A. So we'll be going through the questions and you'll get your chance to ask whatever you feel like. You'll also see on the bottom of your screen, there's like a little smiley face. These are like little emoji reactions. So if anything that is said during the presentation really resonates with you and you want to react to it, there you go. You can just pick one of those. Also, just please be respectful with your questions during this time. And then also, if anyone is active on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or anything like that, please use the hashtag SocialHRC21 with each of your posts. And also, if you would like to tweet Agata and her team, you can tweet at Banantag. So I'm going to throw this into the chat right now for you. So sweet. So this is Agata. Agata has rocketed to the executive level thanks to her innovative approach to people practices and challenging the status quo. Her thought leadership in the HR community has allowed her to not just impact the lives of those who are lucky enough to be part of her company, but also inspire an industry to rethink how they approach HR. She is currently the Vice President of People and Culture at Banantag and has worked with Olympics, Lululemon Athletica, Hootsuite, and Spence Diamonds. So we're in for a big treat today, so I'm going to throw it over to you to take it away.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I'm going to get started. I think that what I really hope we get out of today is, a dialogue. So just want to make sure that, it changed over. Perfect. So a little bit about Banantag, and you would have seen it's at Staffbase. Our companies merged just a couple months ago, but just wanted to share a little bit about Banantag. Banantag Banantag and Staffbase are the world's largest internal comms company in the world. And Banantag specifically, based out of North America, we had over 600 organizations using us, and you can see some logos. I'll be talking a little bit about communication in general, not about a product, but I'm happy to help anyone discover if we're the right product for you at a future time. I'm not here to do a sales pitch. Most importantly, what I really want is this to be interactive, so definitely use the chat. I'm going to be trying to keep my eye open, and I've asked Kata to interrupt me. Otherwise, we could have done this as a pre-recording, and you could have watched it whenever you wanted. So you're here for a reason, so let's make sure this is interactive. And most importantly, there's a prize. So if you were like, I'm going to continue to, check my emails and Slack, I have a reason why you might want to stay present in this conversation. And it's not going to take the full time. I really want it to be a dialogue and really help you guys, ask me questions that are relevant to your organizations, because I think every company is its own flavor, and want to make sure you guys get something out of this for you. So what we're going to talk about, and what I'm hoping to cover in our session today, is one, employee engagement can mean many things. I'm going to talk about how Banantag defines it, how you can define it if it's not the same way we do. We're going to talk about communication in general, and I'm on the topic of communication, and then some tools, and that's where we're going to do some activities, and you can actually experience some of that, and then decide what you want to maybe try and iterate on in your organization. So first topic, defining employee engagement. So we use CultureAmp. There are a myriad of platforms that actually measure employee engagement. So I have a list there, but likely 80% of this kind of cohort would use one of these other platforms, and engagement can mean so many different things. Why I think it's super important for understanding engagement, or what is the measure that you will use, is if you don't have a spot to kind of ground yourself, if you're not impacting employee engagement, or something, if it's not going to be employee engagement, what's the point, right? And this whole conference is really around engaging employees and maximizing results. We believe that those things come together. Banantag, even prior to SocialHRCamp, made that distinction really early on. We said, hey, we know that really engaged employees are the ones that have the multiplier effect on our business. So we're going to start to drive developing our people and all these things that we believe are towards engagement, knowing that there is going to be results, and then we're going to track and measure both. So for Banantag, we use CultureAmp. We use CultureAmp's 5 questions around engagement. I wanted to throw them out here because I think sometimes conceptually you're like, yes, there's an engagement score, and then you're like, but how is it measured? And so it's an average of these 5 questions. And what I'll do is I kind of just show you what it looks like for us. So this is a score, right? We got 74%. We have 7% people that are unengaged or disengaged, and we have about 19% of people that are, kind of neutral is what they would describe. And you might be like, okay, this is great. Like, is that good or bad? You don't know. There's tons of things I can go into, but I'm not here to talk about employee engagement. I just want this defining piece to be around a grounding foundational piece. And why does it matter? So if you don't have some sort of key measure, we happen to pick engaged employees. Sorry, what you're doing has no basis of being measured against. So you don't know if you've had progress or a lack thereof of progress. Knowing anything is always better than nothing. And you can use other things. So you don't have to use employee engagement. So if you're like, this part doesn't relate to our organization, or I don't have access to that information, it can be a ton of different things. So we happen to get ourselves stuck on this. So you can use retention of employees, you can use attraction, you can use company performance, goal achievement, sentiment. You can use any measure you want, but pick something. Just pick anything at this point. And why does it matter? Here's an example, is we've been able to measure our engagement over time, and we've been able to also see how we communicated. And I just put in a few, these are real legitimate examples of things that we did that have required a ton of communication and change management from, organizational right down to individual, and seeing like how that impacted engagement over time. I know this graph is like really small, but you would see some like, hey, we did this really well and we did this really poorly, and here's the impact on engagement. So we know when we've kind of regressed or progressed as an organization. Now, the second topic, and this is where I'd love to, definitely see some chats come through and just getting your guys' idea, is communication, right? We always think that communication in the most simplest terms, hey, I have a message and then I send this message and then someone receives it. But in reality, that's definitely in a vacuum, and that's really the model. There's a sender and a receiver. But it's really a lot more complicated, right? Because there's a point in time, and then time happens, and circumstances and business and people have conversations all the time, and decisions are being made, and that conversation doesn't move with the time of what is happening in the organization. And so many times you have this, I've experienced this as in my role, where it's like, well, we said this, okay? And then you go back and it's like, yeah, but things have changed. Okay, well then we have to go and explain that, or we'll just make a new decision, or no one's going to remember. I'm sure many of you've had that example come up. And I think the one thing I would take away out of this section is there is an amazing amount of communication that happens in organizations, and sometimes we think of communication very specific in a circumstance or a isolation, or it's not my problem, or it's someone else's department, where it doesn't really matter where you are in the organization in terms of access or decision making or level, right? Like whether you're someone junior or early in your career or someone senior, communication happens all the time. And then I'm going to give you some more examples. So I think the most obvious is like town halls, company all hands, company kickoffs. You can take it to like even bigger, different kind of company updates, which could be like a memo, a quarterly business review, not like this big, the giant one. It could be like a smaller one, but it's still organizational level. you get to see that really trickle down to like certain teams, right? There's a sales meeting, or there's the technology meeting, or there's a marketing call. Those still matter. So do OKRs or goal setting meetings. Many organizations use those. Team meetings, right? Let's just use like the account executive meeting or the HR meeting, whatever it is. There's these teams that also have meetings, and there's communication and discussion there. Performance reviews, right? Employees get a lot of information in their reviews, sometimes not about the company, but in general. And then there's just one-on-one meetings. There's communication all the time, right? Especially amongst peers, and that's where a lot of communication happens. And you can't control it all, right? I think that's the one thing is, one more thing, like then there's like nonverbal communication, email, Slack, Zoom, things that aren't, recorded or kept in kind of, it's considered like casual or organic conversation, right? Many of these other ones are maybe a little bit more structured or prepared. And the one thing that to take away is communication happens all the time. And I think that a lot of individuals, professionals are like, well, I just want the thing I can do now to make things better. And the thing is, it's not about control. It's actually about unifying, finding the things in all these different areas and finding a way to unify them. And I'll talk you through those. So the question that is important, regardless of where you are in the organization, to think about is how is the information you are sharing or want to share, the message in that original example, important to the employee. So many times the message that we share, no matter where part of the organization or what level of kind of communication, is usually about the messenger, not about the recipient. And if you change the way you think about communicating to employees about what's the value for them to know this information, whether it's to be informed, to be prepared for change, to make different decisions, to have a different understanding, to participate or help, change the direction or change the work that they do in support of something, helping people understand why that information is impactful to them and messaging it in a way that is unique to that audience is going to completely change the way messages are received. And I always have this experience, when you're having a conversation or you're getting communicated to, and it feels like that Charlie Brown experience where it's like, wah, 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 wah. When you ask this question and you curate the way you talk and speak and communicate, whichever format you do, it'll not sound like Charlie Brown. So how to bring it all together? I think this is super important. Engaging employees, and I'm going to talk through each of these kind of like one at a time. So engage employees in the process of communication. So right now I am speaking at an audience of roughly 27 people, but imagine you guys started chatting or coming onto stage and you felt hey, I don't understand this piece, or what does that look like? And you have people participate. Talking to employees and having employees engage in the process of communicating can look very differently. So an example that's like a tactical example, at Banantag, when we do town halls, we actually have employees be the hosts of the town halls. So it's not just like the executive team talking down to employees. We also have employees help facilitate quizzes. Sometimes they have a topic that's really interesting. We'll ask an employee to do a very small segment so that there is a true representation of it being bidirectional. And then, the second one is like representation. I think there's a huge amount of sensitivity around DEI. I think that's probably an understatement for many people here. But having people be truly representative of the organization, including minority groups. My caveat here is be impactful. Don't tokenize employees. Like if you're talking about, a part of your organization, maybe around sales, having a male-female co-present that section, so it's not always one, one person, one type of person, whether it's like generally the white male always presenting, having the ability to have different voices. The caveat again is please don't tokenize because people know when it's happening. And then use devices. So we're all on a screen right now. There is a ton of different devices. What a Staff Base's product, the one company we merged with, is actually an employee app. So if you're company is split between desk workers where are used to using a laptop and Slack, and then you have manufacturing or logistics people, or people that are in retail and stores. Get them something that goes on their phone that they can go and look at during their breaks or on their bus ride home. Get them where they are at. Like, don't expect someone to necessarily go to a kiosk and log in. So thinking about it from the employee perspective, where is the best way to get to you? Sometimes the right answer is text message. So finding tools that is like, hey, our people are on their phones on text, they're very familiar with this. How do we get messages to them that are meaningful? Even newsletters. You can get companies, including Banantag, but other companies that can do a newsletter in a text format that opens up as like a microsite. So it looks like your newsletter, but they're just on a browser that's like secure through link. So just thinking about it from where people are at and knowing it's not the same for everybody, and that's actually okay. The next bullet is around record and summarize. Not everyone will be there, right? Whether it's physically, because I'm actually doing a job, or I'm sick, or I'm taking care of my family, or I'm in a different time zone, or I actually wasn't engaged because I was dealing with something, right? Like I'm kind of here, but kind of not there. And then having it recorded or summarized is such a wonderful way to keep that communication that you've put so much effort into to stay alive, right? To document it in a way that maybe someone else will understand. I speak fast. I know this. I've worked on this all my life, and I move quickly. And the summarization might be really good where someone doesn't, go at the speed of me. And so having it in different formats, video and written, is such a wonderful way to neutralize. Written is also great for translation. So I highly recommend that. And it also just helps people keep up, right? If they've missed it or for whatever reason, they can keep up and they're not lagging super behind. The next one is a really important one. I sometimes want to start with that, the one, never ignore a question ever, but it doesn't make sense at the beginning. If someone has a question, no matter how trivial or complicated or sensitive it is, never ignore a question. If you ignore a question that is in a public setting, it will subconsciously or consciously tell people you don't answer specific questions, even if it was just an accident. This is why we at Banantag have hosts, so that when the person is presenting, in our example, Kata could say, hey, Agata, someone just had a question about this. It will never get missed. If you can't answer the question, say, Shelly, that's a really great question. I actually don't have the answer, and I don't think we're in a place to actually give you our answer right now. We will get back to you or the organization at our, as soon as convenience, whatever you want to say. But even the acknowledgement that you've had the question and saying thank you will continue to improve. And then the communication becomes bi-directional. And that's where engagement grows, right? Because when people are like, I am proud to work here, I understand our purpose, I don't want to leave because I'm actually being heard and seen and I have some contributions. That's how that engagement goes up, and therefore you should see the results start to come up. And that follow-up is when needed. So sometimes follow-up is like multiple times, right? We did this town hall, we're rolling things out, you're gonna see this over the next 3 months, and it's going back and saying, hey, remember in town hall, we said we're gonna do this thing, we're 1 month done, we're on track, we're ahead of track, we're behind track, and keep anchoring things so that it is consistently brought back so people can catch up, right? Because communication, as you saw, is happening all the time. So making sure you anchor people back to something that needs to be anchored to, or say, we've cut bait. We said this in town hall, or this meeting, or this department, we were wrong, we've changed direction, it's no longer relevant. But following up, leaving things kind of in the air and not closed out in one way or the other, really actually gets people confused, because then they're working on different sources of truth is maybe how I would describe it. So this should say real tools, not real tooks, to try now. So prizes. And so we're about to do that. We're going to have prizes, but prizes are really engaging. Competitive people will come out for sure. But sometimes people are like, hey, I'll try, why not? And prizes is a good way to get people to, pay attention, be curious about the prizes even. And that's enough, right? And I think you can tie your prizes whether to a thematic communication. So you might have one around, I'm going to use an easy one, like we care about you culture. We really want to talk about that. you'll want to give a prize around culture. You can do one around, we've done some really interesting prizes. We did one around the gift of giving. So we gifted gifts that they could re-give to friends and family in during a tough time. So there's ways of you can combine your prizes to your theme, and you don't have to. You can totally just make it here's a DoorDash gift card because everyone likes food. And technology. So taking the communication in general to where people are at, which is one of the things. The caveat is you can also get them to autopilot. If you're always on Zoom, it just feels like more Zoom. So integrating other technologies to kind of keep them on their toes, right? To be like, oh, I need to use my phone now. I'm like, okay, but not making it so hard that you just have a drop off. So there's a balance. Every company is going to have different levels of technology savviness, and you just need to be able to curate to your audience and get clear on your one message. If everyone walked away and just said, like, if you in 1 week from now I asked you what did you get from that meeting, whether it's a department meeting or team meeting, what is the one message, and make sure it gets reiterated multiple times. And an example would be even the order of which you talk about things and where you summarize. So we did a company kickoff, and in 2020, the company message was we're investing in our people, right? That was just a message. Everything, we started every section talking about how we invest in our people. And I was always talking about it because I was the first person that was responsible or accountable for that. 2021, we did all that work, right? We've invested in our people, we empowered them. And now it was really around driving a serious growth as the economy bounced back. And so I no longer was the first speaker. I was actually the last speaker. I was the person that brought it all together and said, these things are so important, but we're driving results, right? We're out there to get our competitors. And it's making sure that all the things, are in strategic order to support that one message. And it is hard, especially when I say you can't control everything, it's around helping unify. This is where you help coach other leaders and just helping them, talk about communication in this way. And again, follow up, summarize, and record for those who can't attend. Like, it's such an easy thing to do or forget. It's kind of like when you finish a project and then you never really have a debrief or tell anyone that it actually was successful. This is that one piece that is like a little bit of extra effort actually goes a really long way. And then assume best intent. So whether it's someone communicated something wrong, someone miscommunicated something, someone didn't communicate something, someone asked a weird question, always assume best intent. And we've had this occur in our town halls or department meetings where someone asks a question and we are like super kind of confused on like where the question came from, or like it's not related to the content. So two ways to deal with it is answer the question assuming they had great intent, or somehow, the questions came up later, or ask a clarifying question. And so we do that actually quite often because, different vantage points of the organization. Sometimes we'll have someone asking something really specific about a customer feature as an example. And so, we can answer the question, but, we always say we'd love to answer the question, but we want to make sure we understand the base, like exactly what you're looking for. And so we'll sometimes ask the person to come on the Zoom, on stage as in our example, and just give us the context. And then we usually go, yes, okay, totally happy to answer that. Good thing we asked you for some clarification. And again, you thank that person regardless of how relevant or non-relevant. Okay, it's prize time. So I'm going to do a little bit of like stop sharing and resharing. But you're going to be going to a website, whether on your phone. I actually recommend the phone. It's a way better experience, or on another tab. You'll want to see the screen still. So I recommend going to your phone. So give me 2 seconds. As you can tell, let's see if this is going to work. All right. So you'll go to kahoot.it. You do not need to download an app. And then just put in your name, ideally your real name, just so I can find you for your prize. All right, Hera. So, IP. And then you just put in this pin that's up here, 819-1369. Okay, you guys all have a really good chance of winning these prizes. Awesome. So this is an example. I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes. Sorry, like a minute here. We use this actually in the middle town halls to break up the content, but also make sure key messages are being reiterated, but in a competitive way. So you're about to experience it. All right, we have a couple more people. Awesome. And this is really easy to set up, like highly recommend it. So, all right, let's get started. Oh, we got a couple more people. Maybe I'll give it one more second. Okay, I'm about to start. So whoever's not logged in, I'm so sorry. Okay, here we go. All right. So let's get started here. First question, what should you do first? Launch an engagement survey, find a key measure of success, get started, communicate something. Answers are coming in. All right, so find a key measure of success. So if you thought I said employee engagement survey, I totally get it because I talked about engagement surveys, but it doesn't have to be. So this is an example where if you saw this, you're like, okay, what I've learned from this is I needed to communicate clearly, find a key measure of success first. We happen to use employee engagement survey. So we get a leaderboard and we're gonna keep going. So person who wins will get a prize. Second question, what is the most important question to ask yourself? What is the meaning of life? How can I control as many forms of communication? Why is this information important to an employee? How do I get representation of all employees involved? All right, good job. Great. Okay, so most of you got this right. So we had a few people get it off, but why is this information important to an employee? So thinking about the audience and not why I may want to be sharing this information. Right, Michael Ryan, you're up there, but you have quite a few people on your tail, so be prepared. Banantag and Staffbase are what? The world's largest internal communication company, really cool companies that banded together, real fun tech companies that no one has heard of. Banana who? Right. Great job. We are really cool companies that banded together, but we have become the world's largest internal communication company. So thank you, everyone. Very close runner up. Wow, Tim, you definitely rose up from the ashes here. Good job. Fourth question, why is picking any key measure important? So I look smart to measure lack of progress, to measure progress, to measure progress and lack of progress. All right, 5 more seconds. Good job. Yes, good question. The 2 people or the 7 people that got kind of between this was a semi-trick question. Sometimes knowing you're not progressing is also good, so that you know you need to change. So great job. Let's see. Stephanie, wonderful. We've got a new leader on the leaderboard. Last question, anyone can win. Communication happens all the time. It's not about control. It's about control. It really is. Having a strategy, unifying, transparency. Okay, it is. Transparency is great, very important. But yeah, it's not. You can't always manage transparency. Having a strategy is really, really great, and sometimes you just don't, and you need to get started somewhere. So unifying is definitely a spot to begin. All right, so who's the winner? Stephanie, 3rd place. Chris, 2nd place. Great job. Wow, I don't know how to pronounce this. Christina. Just take a screenshot of this and email people at Banantag. There's going to be a screen for you in a second, so you can get your prize. Yeah, let me turn this off because it's very loud. All right, that was awesome. Okay, so let me finish off the presentation. Give me 2 seconds here. Almost. Perfect. Okay, so if you won first place, email people@banantag.com and we will get you a prize. The prize is you will get a beautiful bouquet of flowers from a local small business wherever you live, and a beautiful bouquet of flowers to someone you want to send anywhere in Canada, assuming you're in Canada. If you're in the US, we'll do the US. But yes, you get to get one for you and get one for your bestie who you probably haven't seen, or your mom or whoever. So yeah, that's your prize. Okay, so in summary, define a key measure of success. Try anything. If you've never done Kahoot, try it. If you've never done employees moderating your chat, try it. If you want to host, try it. Having employees ask questions in a way that's anonymous. If you think there's a trust issue, try anything, and then keep iterating and measuring your success, whether it's sentiment, just anything to get you started. And you'll see over time, you'll get some feedback, whether it's through the measures or in general. I know that there's a lot around communication and employee engagement, and so I wanted to give you guys some extra resources. You'll have access to this, but how to just get started. This is a really great blog. We also, if you answered strategy, here's how to start a strategy in terms of the internal comm strategy. How to improve town halls. If you're like, yeah, town halls are not that greatest. Go ahead, and then picking some tools, and anything about employee apps, because I know that's a little bit of a spot that people don't necessarily know a lot about. So I will definitely share those.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Right now we can use the last few minutes. Any questions? Does anyone want to dive in with any questions they want to ask, or any clarification on anything? I know I have some, so I'd like to start maybe with one.
Yeah.
So obviously I think right now it is a hot topic talking about return to office. A lot of companies are trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do and what they should be doing. So with that being said, will a return to office or like a hybrid workplace model really change anything you just shared? And then if so, in what way?
Yeah. It wouldn't change anything we've done and anything I would even recommend. I actually think because of this remote workplace world, or this even some companies hybrid, it forces us to really think about where our people are at, and having representation of someone not physically in the office hosting town hall. And I'd even recommend the people presenting not being in person, and actually even if they're in the physical building. We actually were piloting pre-COVID, having us present in our own meeting rooms, so that we had a similar experience for people in office or at home when we had employees all over the world or all over North America, so that they had the same quality, right? And so I would say nothing that I shared today needs to be changed again. I think you can leverage what you're building out of from here into a hybrid or fully remote or fully in office, perspective.
Amazing. I see a comment in the chat from Brenda. I hope I said that okay. Heard a lot. She has heard a lot of employees requesting for sabbaticals because of the burden of the pandemic. Have you heard anything about this? And then if so, how would you work with your team on supporting that or addressing that? I know it's a big question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, I would say 100%. It's in Banantag. It's showed up a little bit differently than sabbatical, but I think it's just the age of our workforce that they want extended vacations. I want to go vacation, take all my vacation in one lump sum, and I want to work from that country for 1 or 2 months. Can I do that? Right? These kind of circumstances. The content of this, I can talk about my own opinion on sabbaticals and all that stuff, but the communicating to engage employees and maximize results, that recording and summarization and interaction is so important to bring when those individuals come back from either an extended vacation or remote or a sabbatical, that they can catch up, right? They can catch up to the content, or remember I said communication happens and then time happens. the sooner you can have people back on the bus, understanding what's happened in that time horizon, the better, right? So yes, I think there is going to be this huge wave of sabbaticals or versions of sabbaticals in the future, and being able to support that in a way that's like, hey, we can do that and it's not going to crush our business, because we're going to continue to have employees have the information to do their jobs when they're ready, right? Now, if that question, Rhonda, I'm not sure, is more around engagement or around how do we make sure that we don't lose these people, I'd love to hear more. But yeah, I think that sabbaticals are going to be a really important design aspect into the future in general. I think that's just going to be a shift that HR professionals are going to have to deal with in the next decade.
Absolutely. We're getting some questions in the Q&A portion, which is great. So one from Christopher, what advice do you have for managing difficult conversations in the workplace? How do you avoid a scenario similar to the one faced by Basecamp, while also allowing folks to engage in a conversation in a respectful manner that isn't distracting?
Yeah, it's a good question. Difficult conversations, I believe, happen all the time, and we just don't. I want to be careful about not getting on a soapbox here, because I want to be actually really impactful, right? I think that leaning on your values or your principles or whatever you call them, and kind of using that as the lens, and also that key measure of success, right? If you're like, hey, our key measure of success is customer close rate, that could be it, and we're going to communicate so people can effectively impact customer close rate. You're going to use that as your lens, and then you decide what's the tough conversation or the difficult conversation you have to have. I believe personally that the cultures that I would like to build and work with executive teams that I want to work with are ones that don't think difficult conversations shouldn't happen in the workplace. We spend so much time and energy in organizations with peers and friends and managers and all those things around. It would be impossible. You may, I worked at Hootsuite, social media, you may need to create some guidelines where you are maybe separating the personal friendships away from a public brand. So at Hootsuite, social media, we ask people, like, if you want to post nudie booty drunk photos of yourself, lock your account. Right? That's okay. Like, you have an Instagram, don't associate it as the company brand. Don't put it as your signature to customers, because they want to be buying something from a professional. We don't personally believe you can't have nudie booty drunk photos of yourself on the internet and not be a professional. But the world doesn't work in that way. And we were always very open with people on, like, here's the line we have to draw to help our business grow, but also not trying to take away from what you want to do. And you don't have to pretend not to be that person. Now, do we want you to be nudie booty drunk person for our company? No, preferably not. We'll have that tough conversation if there's an impact on that. But yeah, what you do in your spare time is your spare time. So what I would say is kind of figure out the culture, right? The values, the principles in which you're going to use, and explain it, right? When people understand why we created social media guidelines for employees, there wasn't an uprising. It was like actually a sigh of relief. There are guardrails and where I can still be fully expressed, but also I'm not now judging my colleagues who are doing these things that I don't understand, because it seems obvious you wouldn't want your customers to see. So thinking about it as guardrails, I think I don't want to throw shame on any organizations. I think different companies use it for different ways. There is a way to communicate it in a way, again, where it's about the employee, right? We want to set you up to succeed in this business. And we know that some of that is, stopping customers from seeing you in this format. And if you don't have those kind of photos and you're really open and it meets our kind of what we think is acceptable, do what you do. But you don't have to. I think that's the big piece.
Amazing. I think we have one more question, but we are at time. So what I'm going to do is anyone who had a question and they weren't able to ask it, feel free to tweet Agata and her team at Banantag, I believe it was, and it's in the chat as well too. So feel free to reach out to them there. Thank you so much, Agata, for a fantastic conversation. A lot of good information here. And thank you everyone for participating. We had some good questions. The quiz was really fun too. I think next up, everyone has as a little break, I believe. So it's a break on interactive wellness activity. So pretty much making better food choices to help fuel your focus. Also, feel free to check out the trade show and do some networking. But other than that, thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for participating.
Bye.